we are going to, in fact, talk about how humans are going to work with AI. As artificial intelligence, AI becomes deeply embedded in enterprise systems, the question, of course, no longer remains whether humans will work with AI or not. It will become about how well that partnership, in fact, progresses, how is it designed in first place. And scale without harmony risks alienation, and automation without empathy risks erosion of trust. And so our next speaker meets us at this intersection. He operates from there with extensive experience in enterprise communication platforms and AI-driven customer engagement. He brings a growth-led yet human-centric perspective on how intelligent systems can amplify human capability rather than replace human capability. So please welcome Mr. Sachin Bhatia, co-founder and chief growth officer, Exotel, as he shares his perspective on human and AI harmony at scale.
Thank you. Can I have the clicker? The clicker for the deck. Perfect. Namaskar, everyone. So I graduated in 2001 from one of the IITs in computer science. And at that time, IT in India was Satyam, Wipro, Infosys, TCS, Cognizant, HCL, in short called Switch. And when I used to ask people, what companies do you respect globally? The answers should be Apple, Google, Microsoft, Adobe, IBM. IBM was respected at that time. One question that bothered me is, why is India not delivering products? And when I listen to the questions around frontier models and foundational models, the same spirit is there. So we should keep that spirit alive. And with that spirit, I start my talk. So across the last 25 years, I've observed two major technology shifts. Right? I think internet and mobile would be those two shifts. And what we are witnessing is the third shift. And what we have done in the last perhaps 1.5 decades, and as soon as I click this, can somebody help me with the deck? Okay, so while they put the deck on, the question that we used to ask ourselves was, if India has all the engineers that are building everything that the Western world is imagining, why can't we build our own products? That was the thought that kept me, awake. And I thought, agar IIT se padha hu to bhuka to nahi marunga, so I should try. I should try building it myself. In the process, I'll learn why India is not building products, right? And my journey from 2003 till today has been to deliver a world-class product company out of India, and I've been at it at the same company, right? So there are some learnings that I have, and AI perhaps is impacting our space more than anything else. Okay, yeah. So last 1.5 decades, I think we have done a really, really good job at whatever has worked in the West, we bring it to India and scale. So we got taxis and make them very accessible. These days, we have issues there also with cancellations, but that model has scaled well. We got an app where you can discover local hotels, and that scaled really well. We got local deliveries like crazy. We have optimized the hell out of it, 10 minutes, and it's a national debate. And it has become a hobby to order twice because you forget something. In fact, at my place, when a Blinkit order gets delivered, the first question is, kiska Blinkit aaya hai? So I think we have adopted those models in the West really well, and I use the word adopted with a little bit of confession. And it has been good, because it has made the digital literacy in the country really, really move up. My dad can now use an app very, very easily. And I think these apps and these models are really great at teaching people how to use some of these tools and frameworks. It has also done something else which is good, which is we have created a large talent pool of product people in India. So now there are product UX engineers, really high-end engineers available in India, and I think that's a very, very good mix. However, the same framework must not be used for AI. And I do not say this with an ego or a pride that India has to deliver its own foundational models. I say this because India is actually very different. Okay, so we cannot copy paste what is happening in the West into India. And the reason is not because I get emotional about it that India, if China has delivered a foundational model, India should also deliver it. It is because the constraints in India are very, very different. And if you don't consider constraints, usually your products become a bad fit. And we should make sure that what we deliver for India today is useful and meaningful for India. There are two spaces, and all of you would have heard of it, apart from the ChatGPT or a Gemini that all of us use as consumers. There are two spaces that are getting really disrupted. The first is AI is really getting good at coding. I don't know how many of you have used it, but I think there was a news yesterday or day before yesterday that Claude launched Claude Work, which was created in two weeks, and 100% of that was coded by AI. So I think this is one trend which is really, really, really foundational to how software would be written in the world. And the second trend is conversations, especially business to consumer conversations. And that's an area that I understand, and that's an area that I want to talk about today. Word over, people believe that most of the business conversations that we do today with the bank, with the retail company, with the e-commerce company would be automated. But I believe that India there is very, very different. India is not just a very large market. It's a mix of hundreds of languages, multiple dialects. We heard the previous speakers talking about it. There are nuances, cultural nuances, that somebody who's talking to you while solving your problem has to understand. And if you don't get that right, the trust would break. So we can't copy-paste a model. We can't think of how the West is thinking. In India, we intuitively know this. We love to discuss, we love to negotiate. Most businesses run on large-scale conversations. Everything is negotiated in India. Relationships, salaries, marriages, especially marriages. And that's a nuance which is not true for a lot of other countries. It is true for some countries like Indonesia, Philippines, Malaysia. I think there are India-like countries that are there, but not true for the West. In West, everything is set framework. You don't need to talk a lot. In India, we love to talk a lot. I don't know how many of you remember that Airtel ad, "Baat karne se hi baat banti hai," right? Which encourages you to talk. So India is like that. Imagine that you were doing a bank transaction and your card got blocked. You actually need somebody to say, "हाँ sir, बताइए क्या हो गया?" And that conversation should end with, "चिंता मत करिए sir, हो जाएगा." If you don't have that in India, the customer will not feel satisfied. You can't give them a ticket number. They don't feel satisfied, right? Whereas in the West, there is this trust that if a ticket number is given, something will happen. Here, if you don't have an assurance from somebody who is a human being, who is empathetic, it is your accountability. You have told me solve ho jayega. If that is not done, our customers don't feel satisfied, right? All of us here would feel that. If you don't have an assurance from a human being, you will not feel that my problem will be solved. A system cannot solve my problem. That's cultural. That is also because for anything to get done, we have always been made to wait. And wait because we are so many of us, right? So queues is a common thing. Okay, I'll tell you a joke. You put a queue anywhere in India without asking what is the queue for, people will stand in the queue because something good will happen at the end of the queue. I don't know how many of you have experienced this, how many of the new generation has experienced this. But if you put a queue in India, at the end of the queue, there is a pot of gold. Something is there, some value is there, right? So I call it the trust tax, right? So in India, the cost of getting trust is that you have to wait. Sorry about the clicker. But the cost of getting trust is that you have to wait. So while the world is thinking about, can I use AI for completely replacing humans? And I'm not against bots. I think bots or agents or whatever you're going to call them are pretty good because they are very quick, They get the context. They can solve small problems. You don't have to wait. That is a failure mode in India because you can't get trust like that. And the second model is you put humans everywhere. The trust tax of waiting has to be given. So all of us are so used to your call is important to us, but all our agents are busy. That doesn't happen in the West. There are enough people staffed to answer whatever queries are coming. But in India, we have to wait for 5, 7, 15, 30 minutes. The maximum I've waited on an IVR is 30 minutes, and that's a very unique India problem. It is because the organization cannot spend more. The margins are not there. So how do you solve for this conundrum? How do you solve for this very unique problem that India has, that trust can be done only if humans are there, but you can't staff enough humans, otherwise the business model will completely falter. What if I tell you that there is a third model possible? And that is what I'm going to talk about today. Think, what is it that you want to eliminate? While the West is saying that labor cost needs to be eliminated, I think what we need to think about is, how to eliminate waiting, how to eliminate repetition. How do you eliminate the wait out of the customer? And how do you eliminate the scenario where the customer has to repeat themselves? How many times it has happened that you call a bank or a company in the morning? I'm not against banks, but banks we all call a lot, so that example comes out. But you call a bank in the morning, and you call them in the afternoon, and they appear like complete strangers. You have to repeat everything that you have done with the previous context, right? So how do we eliminate repeating, and how do we eliminate waiting? That's the framework with which we should approach the problem of automation rather than labor cost arbitrage or removal of labor cost. If we get this model right, if we get this model of making AI and humans work together where wait is eliminated, repetition is eliminated, what are some of the new roles that would come for humans? All of you are aware of air traffic control. So there is this lot of traffic happening, and there is this human which is observing it. What if humans could now observe AI and train it for correctness? What if humans could now course correct wherever AI is going wrong? So you have a role called observer. You can have a role where a human can actually audit real human conversations and real bot conversations, and then say, here are some of the rules that will make those conversations better. How about having people who have authority to take decisions come at the right time during the conversation and solve the customer problem rather than just asking for queries? So humans should be used where humans are valuable, where judgment is important, where trust is important. And machines can help you take context very quickly and solve simple problems. This is a new paradigm of thinking. As I said, the West is thinking about removing cost from service or removing humans. That model will not work in India because trust is required. So you bring in a human as soon as possible, but don't make them do things that a machine can do. So visualize this model that I'm talking about. I call it harmony. Think of it as Vasudev Kutumbakam. When we think of the global world, we think of AI also like that. How do you bring best of AI, best of humans, and have a method by which context can be passed very quickly and pass it to humans? We call it the AI-human harmony. Okay, so the simple method to understand this. What should humans do? And what should machines do? And what should systems do? Machines, you should handle all repetition. No human should be subjected to repeating the same thing 200 times a day. By the way, if you go to a contact center today, that is what happens. Some of you would have experienced it with your friends. We have, I think, over a 10 lakh workforce in contact centers today. So machines should handle repetitions. Machines should get context very, very quickly. You should no longer be required to say, press 1, press 2, press your patience. You should just say what you want, and a machine should be able to understand it very quickly and pass it on to a human. Machine should also be able to do simple resolutions. If it's just about blocking a card, it can be done very quickly. But if it's about understanding your loan and giving you a plan, a human being is required to, because there is trust, empathy, risk that is to be handled there. And what should humans do? Humans should handle emotions, empathy, exceptions, judgments. And what should systems do? As context moves from humans to machines, they should be able to do like a relay race baton pass. There should be no friction in what was told to the machine and what is understood by the human. If we get this right, ladies and gentlemen, while the world is thinking about how AI will replace jobs, if India is able to figure out, especially in this very large space of conversational economy, how humans and AI will coexist and what systems, frameworks, models would enable this to happen, I see this to be an opportunity like no other. And one opportunity that I feel, one area where I feel proud of, where India has done really well. And it was not because it was made in India, because it solved for scale, trust. Everybody knows the UPI model, right? The UPI model came out of India, and then whole of Africa, whole of Asia just adopted it. Not because it was Indian, not because it was made in India, because it was solving problems at scale, and it was not based on credit cards. It was not based on too much greed of commissions. It was based on how can we scale something which just works and is really fast. I believe that we have a similar opportunity in the conversational commerce space, where India can export this model of AI-human harmony to the world. How Exotel thinks about it, we have been solving this problem for quite some time. AI should handle volumes, humans should handle moments in any conversation. And all conversations can be broken up into this is just transaction and this is where the crux of the matter is. So if you can bring in a human being as soon as you sense need for empathy, fear, emotion, bring in a human being to handle that conversation. Until such time, make sure that the machine has collected enough context about the customer, their problem, and what has been happening with them in the past. Lastly, we handle about 100 million conversations a day on our platform. So if any of you are interested in knowing more about this or discussing more about this, talk to us or get in touch with our team. But I will repeat and summarize once again. We should not copy-paste what the West is thinking about what AI will do to human beings. In a lot of markets, it completely makes sense to replace humans with machines because of the cost, because of the cultural nuances, because of what customers expect. In India, the problems are different. Our customers require trust. Our customers love conversations. So don't stop delivering that value. Bring in AI to handle repetitions, handle volumes, completely get rid of queues, and pass on the context to a human being as soon as possible. If we do this well, we'll not only solve for our customers, but most likely we'll give the world a model which will be like the UPI moment for India. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for this articulate speech.